On Jason Ruga, you have absolutely no idea my excitement, but I think I've been telling you guys how excited
I
I am
appreciate it,
because
man.
this is a pivotal moment for me. I think the last time I felt like this, I was talking to Mamla Tambulu in
Oh, little Bulu.
2017,
Oh man.
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were doing this. So
Oh my word.
this man in this room comes very close to a god as far as the influence in my music is concerned. And Dr. Jonathan Butler, welcome to the show. You see, I can't even talk.
Hey man, I'm honored to be on your show, and yeah, I look forward to having a good conversation with you.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start because I've been preparing the whole week
Mm.
to go, where am I going to start? I mean, your career is
Yeah,
so vast. And
yeah.
usually when I start this conversation, I always ask people, um, and if people were under the rock and were not paying attention at all,
Yeah.
um, who would you say Jonathan Butler is to them?
Oh man, I think maybe a lot of things. Maybe I'm a lot of things. I've had to learn in life to adapt to every situation I've ever encountered in my life, and I've learned to embrace cultures, music, food. I've learned to embrace conversations that were either spiritual, religious, or political. In general, I've been a sponge my whole life. I've been like a sponge. I've been taking in music growing up. I remember my first city that I left, Cape Town. My first city I arrived in was Durban, and I stayed in Durban in West Road Overport. And the next city I went to was Fordsburg, Joburg, and I stayed in Fordsburg. Grew up in Fordsburg, so I grew up in Durban, then I grew up in Fordsburg for a long time. Riverlea, uh, Eldorado Park with Sammy Brown, stayed at his house, and then I left there, went to stay in Bosman.
Oh, wow.
Then I went to move to Rega Park. Then I also grew up in Maravastad in Pretoria.
You're
So
not serious.
to many for my generation, they've known me in all of these cities, in all of these places that I found myself in, and then I would periodically go back to Cape Town to see my parents. You know, But I grew up listening and being a sponge to music, being very adaptable because I felt like, I was young, I was a little boy learning to perform in front of stages where it was apartheid. It was the height of apartheid and segregation and
Yes.
laws that prohibited us to only play for whites one day and play for blacks in the township, one day, and which was rather as I grew up, it became rather confusing, and
Yes.
those
Yes.
conversations begin to grow around me, and it began to affect how I viewed South Africa and what was happening around me, and
Yes.
why there was not
Yes.
enough conversations in my home about that. So, to put it in a
Yeah.
nutshell, as much as I was a sponge growing up, I was also very confused about the country that I so love deeply, and why I had to. But I had enough. The good news is I had enough guys and women who taught me I'm talking about
Yes.
Duke Makazi, Stompy
Yes.
Manana,
Yes.
oh my gosh,
Wow.
Dennis
Yes.
Abad, all of these guys, they were all around me. Sipo, Bekium Suleko, these were all men that kind of educated me about what was going on in the country. So and of course, when I knew Miriam, I later on met Brayu Masekela, who I was thinking about him yesterday because I played African Breeze that we used to do together. So I had
Yes.
a lot of people to look up to kind of help me understand what was going on in the country. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I want us to hold it there for a moment. There's like just so much to actually talk about, and you've actually now introduced another interesting perspective there. Because I think technically, when I talk to you, I shouldn't actually just say musician, composer, um, instrumentalist. I should also say activist, right? Because a lot of the partly your music, even when you started, was in a sense an act of activism
Yes.
as a result of all of those pieces of knowledge in this
Yes.
instance. Yeah.
Yes.
But I want to start with first, and then we'll come back. We'll be all over the place in terms of
Okay.
this because I can't be linear with your history because it's just so vast. You've been
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
It's 6 decades. It is what 6 decades of doing this, right?
Yeah.
How long
Yes,
have you been
it
doing
is.
this? Yeah,
It's
6 years.
yeah. It's 6 decades. You're right. You're right. Because
Yeah. So
I started when I was doing this from the age of 5. I was doing this.
yes,
You know,
yes, yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, but I want us to go there. I don't necessarily want to start right at the beginning, but I want to start. I want to get a nice portrait of
Mhm.
who Jonathan Butler, doctor now, Doctor Jonathan Butler, which is also something I want us to talk about. But I want to do this song because I want to get it over with, because it's gonna get me in trouble on my show,
Okay.
because it's a jazz show. But I want to play this song because it's important for the
Okay.
next part of this story.
Okay.
You are just we chill into jazz, and we wrap your week up on a jazzy note. And I have Jonathan Butler screaming like a little girl in the show. But I've been looking forward to playing this song. So forgive me. I'm gonna play this because it's important for the story. We'll be back. Lies.
How do you know the life of personal coach you're about to work with is who they say they are? How do you know if they can do the job? At the Africa Board for Coaching, Consulting and Coaching Psychology, we can tell you. So, before you share your secrets and spend your money, check with us first. Visit www.abccccp.com or call us on 012-751-7608. The ABCCP, the professional body for coaches.
Yes, my people. I am with the now Dr. Jonathan Butler, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But uh, I played Lies now, which I
Yeah.
wouldn't play on a
Yeah.
jazz show
Yeah.
in general, but
Yeah.
it is important to play as part of this history because that's what got you out of the country.
Right.
Can you tell a little bit of the story around that song and why you are now where you are? And then we'll come back into
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
beginning of your history.
Well, I I left South Africa in early 80s. My daughter is now 40 years old. So about 40 years ago, I left. I had the opportunity to go to London,
Yes.
and I was signed to Jive Records in London. And when I arrived in London, before I was there in London, I was part of the UDF movement. With Alan Busak. I was out in the forefront. Most musicians I grew up with in Cape Town were part of the movement with the UDF to fight against apartheid, and I just came into my my spirituality and my faith, and so when I got the contract to go to London, I was very I was a little bit hesitant because I wanted to devote my life to my spirituality and my faith and to the movement and to because I felt there was so much happening in the country. The change was so strong and so powerful, and I wanted to be part of that. But I got an opportunity, and I spoke to a very dear a man who was my pastor, and he said, "Listen, you should go. You should go to London. You should take this opportunity and go to London. If it doesn't work out, you've done it. You've done it. You can come back home." So when I arrived in London, I was immediately, I became more involved in songwriting. Nobody knew who I was in England. I was a nobody. I was a South African guy. And for the first time, mind you, I was on a bus or a train sitting next to white people, Indian people,
Yes.
Nigerian folks. And it just blew my mind that I was now on a bus with all of these people and there was no signs anywhere, colored, black, white signs. And it began to just really hit me, you in a different place. And basically I then became the record company just said, "We're gonna team you up with this guy. His name is Jolyon Skinner, and he's your co-writer. So you're gonna collab with him on everything, and you're gonna work on some stuff with Billy Ocean." So I became a session musician. I started
Yes.
sessions for Billy Ocean, Millie Jackson, Womack and Womack. And that's how I began to make a living. I've started making a living doing sessions. But while I was doing sessions, I was writing all of these songs with Jolyon Skinner. And one of the songs that you mentioned that you just played, Lies, was one of the songs that the record company got really excited about because it had a real kind of, had real snap, funky horn section. It had a real snap
Yes.
on the drums, and George Benson was scatting, and was George Benson controlled the airways with his voice and his guitar, and they kind of encouraged me to go in that direction because I could sing and I could play guitar, and I could figure out, like, the guitar was an extension of me. So I knew I could do
Yes.
anything with my voice. Whatever I could do on guitar, I could do with my voice. And the rest was history because first of all, I didn't even know when they put out the Lies on radio. Now, that's so funny. The funny side of the story is every day that I would write songs, I would go home with a different taxi driver because I would be in the studio till 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and the taxi drivers would take me home. And I would also always ask them if I could play my music in their car, in the cassette. So I would
Yes.
put my music on
Very
in the
smart.
taxi, yeah, and get a real response from the taxi driver. And this
Yes.
particular taxi driver, he said, "Man, why aren't you on the Top of the Pops TV show with all those
Yes.
stars?" I said, "Man, I'm from South Africa, I'm just here writing songs and, trying
Yes.
to, do my thing." He goes, "Man, brother, your music should be on Top of the Pops." So lo and
Yes.
behold, Lies
Yes.
came, when the double album came out and they chose Lies. Lies was that crossover song that crossed over from
Yes.
R&B into pop, into mainstream, but it had enough jazz flavor to uh, 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 to solidify the fact that I have a jazz foundation
Yes.
because of my experience. I've been surrounded with jazz musicians my whole life, and so
Yes.
it's so funny that I'm bringing this up because I was just watching an interview with Stevie Wonder a few minutes ago,
Yes,
and he
yes,
said
yes.
he used a very beautiful phrase. He says, "Songs are like children; they never leave you." You know,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
much as much
yeah,
as
yeah.
as much as I hate to sing these songs over and over and over again, believe me, I gotta sing them over and over and over again. So, but that's
Yes,
how it all
yeah,
started for me. I mean, I was making a living doing sessions in London as a
yeah,
session musician, getting paid, um, and and then learning how to craft songwriting. I became a songwriter, learning how to not just write a song, but craft it so it has not just a beginning and an end, but it has the middle pieces that takes people somewhere with your story.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes, and I think one of the things that is so mature about that song, which I think for me just it drives me nuts literally all the time, is I don't hear even you on the song. No, no,
yeah,
no offense. It is so rich in its texture,
yeah,
the voices, and
yeah,
then the layers of the sketching,
yeah,
and then there's the guitar, and
yeah.
then and somewhere there, then there's your voice uh, 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 just crying about this very important story that's
Well,
just surrounded a
that's
forest of creativity. It was amazing.
thanks to the producers that I was working with, because again, as a South African artist, it took me to another level of understanding how you put it all together, how to
Yeah.
make a record and stylize it, and also shaping the artist's sound. I
Yes.
mean, when I listen to Stimela by Brayu, it's shaped in such a way that only he can do it. I mean, everybody can
Yes.
try to do it, but it's only Brayu's version that has that um, authenticity about it. It's original, it's rootsy, it's very, very rootsy. And then here I come with lies, with the sound from the US, and suddenly it's polished, it's well kind of crafted, but it's also something that I've imagined this, I've dreamt this, I've always wanted to, be on the radio. I always wanted to make music that people could hear, and also to be able to write your own songs and have it played on the radio said a lot. It said a lot
Yes.
about
Yes.
who you are as an artist. You are an artist. You write your own music, and it's played on the radio, and people are listening to you. And so that's what I try to encourage young people. I always try to encourage
Yes.
them to write their own music.
Yeah.
This is their legacy that they need to embrace. Yeah,
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit. So we'll go into that transition then from the UK to this Jonathan Butler. That's literally you've played literally with everybody, and I was like laughing when you were rattling now all the names around Millie Jackson
yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm Billy Ocean, and I'm gonna. It started already there, and
yeah.
it has been the pattern throughout. But I want to speak about that. I want to come back to the piece then that got you then into the career, right?
Yeah.
Because in that apartheid, the bad old days of apartheid, because it sounds like it's a good old days for some people.
Mhm.
What I know that many people don't know is that you were the first uh, black artist, if I'm not mistaken, to be played on white radio. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. That's true. It was in 1973 or 74. The
Yeah.
song was called "Please Stay," and
Yes.
the writer was Burt Bacharach from the US. Of course, everybody knows Burt Bacharach. Alfie,
Yes.
House is Not a Home. Do You Know the Way to Santa Fe? Um,
Yeah.
and
You could say Dionne Warwick,
oh, Dionne
because
Warwick,
but
exactly.
Baccarat is Dionne Warwick.
Oh my God, yeah. And so that was the song of choice at the time. The labels, wanted me to record that song, and
Yes.
not. I was probably 13 years old, and when the song came out on radio, the label pushed for it to be played on white radio. I mean, they went to mainstream radio. They um,
Yes.
they had a machine. They worked that record. Now, as a 13-year-old, I come from Belgravia State, Cape Town, from Athlone. I grew
Yes.
up I grew up in a shack. What you see, in when what you see coming from the airport in Cape Town on the side of the freeway. I was brought
Yeah.
up in one
Yeah.
of those homes. I know exactly what that is. I know what that means and what it is. And so we didn't even have a radio in our home, but
Uh,
we had this thing called like a gramophone.
yes.
You know those gramophones?
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
then
Yes.
inside was like dials and a little light, And my father would sometimes play the radio, and I heard myself on the radio. I was completely just shocked to hear myself on the radio, and I don't think I've ever experienced that type of popularity, notoriety in ever in South Africa, because it was so huge. It was such a, I mean, to be played on the radio every day. I was, and this company was like a machine. They were like, they were, once the record got to top 10, top 5 to
Yes.
number 2, and I had no idea what the significance was socially, politically, that I was the first black artist on radio and the youngest on radio. So I had
Yeah.
no idea politically and socially what that meant at the time. All I remembered was I was living in a country that had laws that said blacks could not go here, you couldn't get married, you know, you couldn't love who you wanted to love. Um, I lived in Hillbrow, then I lived with Lionel Peterson. When I was living in Bosman, and and
Yes.
uh, and I lived there for a long time. But shielded from apartheid, no, because as an artist, you're never shielded from those things because you are living
Yeah.
in it. You are living
Yeah. Yeah.
it daily. And so
Yeah.
after that police stay went huge. As a matter of fact, I treasure one of my prized possessions. One of the things that I hold very dear are those three
Yeah.
gold records that are in my studio.
Yes.
They,
Yes.
from those gold records, I won a Sorry Award,
The
and I
Sari Award. Yeah.
first black
Yes.
artist to win the Sorry Award that year.
Yeah.
And I still recall winning the award, accepting the award, and leaving the facility. And
Yes.
a couple of white guys was approaching me as I was walking with my award. And I still remember how they approached me and what they said to me, you know. And I thought to myself, man, you could be a famous person in South Africa, but you'll always live in the shack.
Yes.
And I
And go
had,
out the back door.
yeah, I had to still go out the back door, you know. And so those things lived with me for a long time. And I think, to be honest with you, those things have shaped my life.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
shaped.
Because I mean, maybe let's talk a little bit about that, and we need to take some music. I want us to also at some point talk about. There's just so much Seventh Avenue, Crossroads, and all of that.
Yeah,
Because what I'm trying to do here is establish that before Lies, there was Jonathan Butler still, right? Because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because many people think your career started when you went to the UK, but you were
No,
a star. You were a star here
yeah,
already.
yeah, yeah. At home, yes, at home.
But you just mentioned something important. So when you think then about all of those events and where you grew up and all of the people that you've met and even some of the musicians that you've met in South Africa at that time, it shaped your music, it shaped your sound. In what way did it do that?
Well, like like I said earlier, I've always been a sponge when it comes to creativity and art and life itself in general, philosophically speaking, because um, I did not have a formal education, so everything I relied on was my ear. My
Yes,
ear was my compass, and my eyes was like my snapshot. So
yes,
everything you say, I would hear it, and with my eyes I would snapshot those words. I would just take a snapshot of your whatever you would say to me. I would take a snapshot of it and I would keep it in my ear, and later on I would use it. And so because I was privileged to I use the word privilege because I met a gentleman back when I was a child, a little child, singing in the Golden City Dixies, Ronnie Madonsela from Durban. He was such an incredible singer, but he was such a
yes,
great speaker that I sat
yes,
under him and listened to him. I grew up with, Roy Peterson was one of the greatest jazz organists. South Africa probably don't remember this gentleman, but he was like the Jimmy Smith of jazz organists. I met Becky Usaleka was the greatest. He was like the South African Keith Jarrett. So I had guys who was in my life, especially Duke, especially Tamba,
yeah.
the Tamba on trumpet. Jesus, I knew I had all these brothers around me. The great Alan Queller. I just composed a
Yes.
song. I just wrote a song for Alan that I hope to release on
Um,
my next album, because I used to go and buy Alan. He went go to the store and buy me a drink and come back. Winston Mankunku. I had the privilege of sitting around these gentlemen and listening to their conversations and listening to the
yeah,
sounds that they had made. And also
yeah,
Cape Town, my brother Cecil was a jazz guitarist. My father was a banjo player. Um, Originally, I believe my father came from Monrovia, Liberia, my grandfather. So banjo was one of the things that my father was very good at, and singing. So in my home there was such a lot of music. I remember meeting Zim Kawana from Port
yes.
Elizabeth. He lived with me for a while. I learned. I think the shape of it shaped the sounds that was in my head, and I always go back to my home sound
Mm,
before I.
yes,
If I go sit in front of a piano, the first thing I would start to play would be like a home tune. It's
yes,
just embedded
yes,
in me.
yeah,
It's just
yes,
inside of my head. Like, I'll start there, and that's how it
yeah,
began for me. I met Russell Herman on guitar,
yeah,
Jack Monplay, Tony Schilder, Chris Schilder, uh, Abdul Ibrahim, as we used to know him as Dollar Brand, but it's Abdul. And
yes,
all the sounds that I have learned to embrace and pay homage to now, and it's maturing. It's like sort of, as an artist, I've just kept evolving
yes,
into this person that I am today, and where I feel like the Western world has accepted the sound that I make. You
Yes,
know, they've
yes,
sort of
yes,
accepted the sound. Like they know it's not smooth jazz. They know
yes,
it's a sound that comes from South Africa.
yes.
Completely.
And that's where we're going to go next, because I think I just wanted to establish that because I think what's always interesting is that, particularly given how radio is also and how our stories are told, the stories are not complete stories, they are pieces of stories.
Yeah.
And we then tend to amplify a certain part of the story,
Right.
as if it's the truth. And I think when we come back, I want us to talk about this representation because one of the reasons why you are here in this conversation is because you have been nominated for a Lifetime Achievement Award as well for the Mzantsi Jazz Awards, right? So I want us to also talk about that because it had a lot to do with this representation thing that you're just going into. But you are on Jazz on Roll. We're chilling to jazz as we wrap your week up on a jazzy note, and we will be back after this.
The Africa Center for Work-Based Learning is a professional development center for professionals who aim to improve their professional standing. This means that the learning programs we run are more than just academic programs. They are work-based programs that focus on leveraging your current experience as a professional to build your overall profile. A year down the line, the Africa Center for Work-Based Learning is developing into a preferred center for professional development in Pretoria, with 8 professional development faculties including accounting, teaching, entrepreneurship, as well as IT and many more. For more information, go to acwbl.org or dial +27 12 751 7608. The Africa Center for Work-Based Learning, where work is learning.
I am having so much fun. I don't even know. I'm calmer now. I'm 30 minutes into this conversation. I think I know a little bit of what I'm trying to do now. I always say to people, my show is like jazz. I have no idea what I'm going to do until I actually sit down and then
Right.
it
Right.
comes.
Right. Right. Right.
So I want to ask a silly question that I always ask, and then I want us to then talk a little bit about this representation of South African music overseas, because that then became that has become your legend in
Yeah.
a sense after moving from the UK. But why did you take up the guitar? Why not the piano? Why not drums?
Well, for the very reason that, like I said, my father was a banjo and guitarist, and so my brother Cecil, my oldest brother, was really the quintessential jazz guitar player. I mean, I before I knew of Barney Kessel or Wes Montgomery or George Benson, my brother was playing that. He was of that stature of a player, and he inspired me. He really inspired me to become a guitarist. And the challenges were I was left-handed,
Yes.
so I was the only left-handed child in the family. So I had to learn how to play as a lefty, and even today when I go around to guitar stores, I always get so frustrated. I say, you know what, do you guys not consider the fact that there are left-handed people in the world? Why are there just right-handed guitars, hanging on the walls? And so
Yes.
in my home now, I have enough left-handed guitars that I can play.
Yes.
I've
Yes.
acquired now enough guitars that I can go, oh, okay, I got a left-hand. But the advantages are
Yes.
amazing when you're left-handed because there's certain things that only left-handed people can do on the guitar that right-handed guys can't do. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that makes you that's what makes you quite special, right? And thank God you took up the guitar, and then you crossed the pond, and then you ended up in the US as a result of all of the
Yeah.
drama with Jive Records
Yeah.
and all of that, and then we have this Jonathan Butler, and you have literally played with everyone. I mean, Bonnie James won the Mzantsi Jazz Awards, Best
Yeah.
International,
Yeah.
um, in 2020, I think it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you've played with him, and you like Waylam,
Yes.
like he doesn't his mouth doesn't go dry when he talks about you and your craft in this
Yeah.
instance. What I don't even know how to phrase this question. So what is it about your sound that makes people think about South Africa in this instance? It's a silly question because I don't even know how to
Yeah.
ask it, but
Well, let me
what
tell
is
you.
it about your sound? Yeah.
Let me tell you. I have a saying. Before I go on stage, they would always ask me, "What would you like us to say? Uh, how would you like to be introduced?" And I
Yes.
always tell them, "Say from South Africa, Jonathan
Yes.
Butler," because that's
Yes.
where I'm from. And I
Yes.
think, I think as I've gotten older, I realize how important our stories are
Yes.
and how
Yes.
important my story is. And so I curate and navigate through music as the vehicle, of course, my story to people.
Yes.
And I think there is a definite, I feel like our music has a definite joy about it. It has a smile. Our music has a smile to
Yes.
it. Even if it's a
Yes.
sad song, even
Yes.
if it's
Yes.
tula tula,
Yes.
even if it's
Yes. Yes.
tula tu
Yes.
tula baba tula twana, even if it's
Yes.
that, I
Yes.
can play it in a
Yes.
way that is so amazing
Yes.
that it makes me
Yes.
feel happy,
Yes. Yeah.
even though I know it's about going to sleep or putting child to sleep. I think we have the spirit of Africa, the spirit of South Africa is so deeply in me, and
Yeah.
I think the older I get, the more I, the more my roots are extending itself and growing stronger towards my home, my country, and just wanting
Yes.
to represent South Africa. I feel like I
Yes.
just want to represent the country. I bear responsibility. I have a responsibility to represent my country and the most
Yes.
positive light, and in the most,
Yes.
even if it's our plight, our struggles. Even through that, people can feel that there's a genuineness about what it is I'm trying to do and what I do. It's not forced. I love music. I love it with all my heart. I would do nothing else. Music has taken me up and it's taken me down and it's taken me up and it's taken me down. And what I've just learned is,
Yes.
that, I've just run my own race and it's called
Yeah.
endurance. It's just called endurance. If you can endure, you will receive a crown if you can endure. But if you're impatient and you want to just be, if you want to run, you should run by yourself. But if you want to walk, I'll come with you. I'll take a walk with you.
Yeah.
But if you want to run,
Ah.
go ahead, go and run. It's for me, it's like that.
Yeah, and I like two things about what you said that I want to follow up very quickly on. I think the first thing about the sound of our music, right, and how it's filled with joy. I remember when Do You Love Me came out.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and that was now years. And because I think one of the reasons why I'm excited about this interview is that we've had conversations with people. I spoke to a number of people because I was going to, how come you haven't won a summer award? How come um, we haven't, we don't speak about Jonathan Butler? And then I think what came out,
yeah,
and not we don't speak about it, we don't speak about you, but we speak about you differently. And the way we speak about you, from what I'm paying attention to, is you're not from here. You're an American. In fact, one of my team members, because I do a bit of a test before we go into this Lifetime Achievement Award. I
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like send the profile around
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
talk to people. So there's a lot of people. We have a whole committee, and then we have conversations and interviews. And one of the things that kept coming out quite a lot was, uh, I I actually forget because I don't think I didn't realize he's from here.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
When I say that, what does that make you think? Because when Do You Love Me came, I think that's okay. Let me connect it, because this is
yeah,
where,
yeah, yeah,
and I was listening to the album itself. It felt very American. It felt like this
yeah,
American
yeah,
artist, and it has the Barry Eastmans and all of these American
yeah,
musicians on
yeah,
it. But there's a track there which that talks a lot about what you just said in the Joy song for Elizabeth, right?
yeah,
And I could feel that as
yeah.
this. So when I say all of this, particularly about how you are seen as not necessarily South African, because people have forgotten you've gone so long, what would you say to that?
Well, you know what? I used to get that quite a lot. Like people thought that I was American, you know?
Yes,
Um, and I guess I've lived, when I left, I mean, it's 40 years ago when I left, close to 40
yes,
years now that I left.
yes.
But I never left home. Home never left me. I just,
Never
like I said,
left you.
I just, as a composer and as a singer and as a songwriter, I remember "Do You Love Me." I remember moving to New York City. I actually left Jive Records. I
Yes,
left. I had fired my manager at the time. I had got, so I was just on my own in New York. I
yes,
bought a house in New York, and I was alone. No label, no management. I had my agent, and I went into the city, and I went to a record store, a music store. And while I was in the music store, I was trying out all these keyboards. And I wrote "Do You Love Me" in the music store. I was playing
one,
the keyboard, and I
yes,
played these chords, and I said, "Oh man, this is kind of cool." So
yeah,
I went home. I wrote "Song for Elizabeth" and "Do You Love Me." Those are two songs
yes,
I wrote in that store. And
yes,
I came
yes,
back home in New York. I got approached by an old friend that I met. What you worked with GRP Records with Dave Grusin,
Dave Grusin, yeah,
inside
yeah,
and Lee Ritenour, all these guys, and they said, "Hey, we'd like to sign you, to this label. We're no longer GRP. We're going to be N2K, and we'd like you to spearhead because you sing, blah blah blah." Patty Austin was on that label, and
yes,
the record came out. The first song that they chose was "Song for Elizabeth" as the single, and that song changed everything. It changed
yes,
everything for me. I literally had, uh, I mean, we had like two or three number ones on that song in the
yes,
state. And I just left. After that, I left New York to move to LA. But to answer the question, I used to I used to walk around Cape Town or play golf in Joburg, and I would hear people talking, you know, thinking that I was American, and I was like, "Hey, die mensen hulle verstaan nie," you know. Hulle verstaan nie dat ek kan alles hoor wat
Yes,
you know.
yes,
Yeah, yeah. And I would just be
yeah,
quiet. I would just be quiet. I would be like, okay, okay, you'll pride for me now, so okay. And
yeah,
but you know, I've never left home, and home
yeah,
never left me. I mean,
yeah,
obviously, having lived here and raised my children in the U.S. and London, I became a
yeah,
citizen in London, a British citizen in London, and I've been here in the U.S. now for feels like forever, you know.
yes. It is forever. I mean,
Yeah,
possibly as long as I have lived.
yeah, and I mean, you know, and I have my grandchildren here,
Yeah,
and um, my wife and I, we play Song for Elizabeth in my
yes,
show,
yes,
and she's a violinist, and so she opens the show with this incredible classical thing that she does that just pays such incredible homage to my mother, who I'm
yes.
really really grateful for, because if it wasn't for her, you know, I wouldn't
Yeah,
be here. But you know, I think I just wanted to live up to the opportunity that was given to me. I think that was an important thing for me, was to live up
yes,
to the opportunity that was given to me.
yes.
I didn't want to
Yeah.
I didn't want to fail because
Be-
yeah.
yeah. Carry on, carry on, carry on.
No,
Finish the sentence.
I just did not want to fail because I felt I owed it to those, to Ralph Simon and Clive Calder, that signed me to
Yes,
Jive Records. I felt like I owed it, and I also owed it to myself.
yes.
I had prior to that, you know, I was coming through a very dark period of my life, with drugs and all that stuff, and
Yes.
when I embraced my faith, I was then a different person. And the opportunity came just at that time. At the time the opportunity came, I took it,
Yes.
and I wanted to
Yes.
live up to it. And like I said, every day I wake up here in LA, I wake up with the same feeling. It's like, hey, you know, you have a responsibility to represent your country. Like even just getting ready to have a conversation with you this morning
Yeah.
on the Zoom, it's
Yeah.
like, I want the people to know that. I want them to
Yeah.
understand that. Yeah.
And I'm so glad we are doing this, because I think when we come back, I want us on now to now pivot, because there's just so much, but we only really have like an hour. But I want us to talk about Ubuntu as well, right? Because in a sense, it kind of envelopes a very big story in the middle with a very big um, catalog of music
Mhm.
that you've actually created, which I
Yeah.
want when people leave this room to go and rummage and hunt through. But what
Yeah.
I'm excited about is just what you've just said now about the Song for Elizabeth, because it's actually one of my favorite. It has always been, I think, from ever since I got that album.
Mhm.
I- and when we come back, I want us to talk about this spirituality shift, because it felt like um, just around the 2000s,
Yeah.
your sound changed, and then doing uh, the sound didn't change, but the messaging
Yes.
it became different.
Yeah.
And I was loving the way how Kekwenam will speak about you, which made me really proud, because I'm like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
But the first thing I want us to do first, I want to play Song for Elizabeth now. I want you to tell the people, because I think many people don't travel as much across the world to know how much our music, what people think about our music. So I want to get your perspective. What
Right.
do people think about our music overseas? But we'll be back on Jason Fuller after
Okay.
this.
The home of inspiration every day.
Most people give up on themselves easily. You know the human spirit is powerful.
From news,
Countries across the globe have been hit by the COVID-19 virus.
views,
There's a global trend to see an increase in GBV incidences, specifically domestic violence.
sports,
What do you say? It's a really good ball. It's Shabalala.
and music to inspire you every day.
This is Vuga Online, your inspiration radio station.
Welcome back to Jazz and Vuga as we chill into jazz, as we wrap your week up on a jazzy note. And I am hanging out with a legendary composer, musician, award-winning, and now a Lifetime Achievement Award nominee for the Mzantsi Jazz Awards, which is taking place on the 30th of August. And we
Oh,
will be honoring the legend of this gentleman. And you've been listening to the story of Jonathan Butler told by him, which for me, this is always what the MJA is about. It's about having to honor the makers of the music while they are still here to tell their own stories. And I think for me, that's very exciting. So, Jonathan, before we took a break and with all of the music, we were talking about your life now as a citizen of the world, because that's literally what you may be talking about. New York, you may be talking about LA, you may be talking about UK,
yeah.
but you are not associated with those countries, really. You are still associated with South Africa,
Yes.
almost invariably.
Yes.
What do people think about our music? You've hung out with everybody.
Yeah. I first of all, I can tell you right now, our music has influenced the world over. I think even now to a greater level where these South African rhythms, whether it's Amapiano or if it's from Nigeria, if it's from Ghana, if you know, I feel like our music has really impacted the world, and will continue to impact the world as we experiencing this the what I call this next generation of technicians. I even call them technicians because the stuff that these guys can do on computer and can do with a drum machine. I think we just Africa to me is the next level, the next frontier, the new world for music. Because like I love that scripture that says there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, Miles Davis, he's nobody, everybody that's going to come after that is just going to come and do what's already been done. Maybe they'll change the grooves, but it's already been done, But I think the truth is your truth and how you explain it through the music. I can take Alfie I could take Manenberg and do Manenberg in such a way, or Pata Pata. I've done Pata Pata.
You've done Pata Pata,
I've
yeah.
done Pata Pata.
Because
For
in as
Miriam.
much as we know the Mam Miriam
Yeah,
version, I think
yeah.
you have owned Pata Pata as your own as well.
I wanted to pay tribute to her and
Yes.
create a Pata Pata in a way that I can tell the story on the guitar. And when I remember it was Joy of Jazz, one year it was Joy of Jazz, and Miriam's dressing room was next to me, and I knocked on the door and I said, "Hi, Miriam, I'm about to go on stage. I'm going to do Pata Pata. Would you mind coming on stage and just singing a few lines, And I remember she came on stage and I said, "Can you explain Pata Pata to me? What is Pata Pata?" And she said, "Pata Pata is a dance. It's a dance." And I said, "Oh my God." No wonder it's like, it's one of those tunes that when you play it, it's everybody wants to dance. It's just everybody's on the dance floor. And but to answer the question, I think our music is even, Marcus Miller wrote Tutu, he wrote Maputo. I think
Yes.
when Americans come to Africa, they feel a certain vibration. They feel a vibration that they don't get here,
Yeah.
But it also takes a different type of musician and artist to be open to allow themselves to be open to where they are. Like when I'm in
To being
Nigeria or
influenced.
Ghana,
Yes. Yes.
wherever I go, I was in Lesotho this year. I was in
Yes.
Lesotho, man, and I had such an incredible time. I started writing, you know, and while I was in Lesotho, it was raining all the time.
Yeah.
So the guy said, "Hey, man, you brought the rain." And the one you brought the rain to Lesotho. I said, oh, man, come on. He said, we're going to call you Matale Pule. I said, what? He said, we're going to call you Matale Pule. So I said,
Yes.
okay. The one who brings the rain. I said, all right. So I wrote a tune called Matale Pule.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's coming.
Ah.
It's in the
Yes.
making. It's in the making.
Yes.
But you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
it's to be it's to and I think again, you know, I think evolving and constantly growing and constantly consistently looking for sound and melody
Yeah.
is one of the things that I enjoy. I really
Yeah.
I feel like I am inside of my body, in my
Yes.
head I'm still this kid who's exploring,
Yes.
discovering.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
and I can see it in Ubuntu. So we'll now talk a little bit about Ubuntu because I think I love how it seems to be wrapping up your musical life very nicely, because the Stevie Wonder stuff there, there's the
Yeah,
Kebmo stuff there,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
there is the South African stuff there
yeah,
that's
yeah,
in there.
yeah,
But
yeah,
before we do, let's talk about that shift because one moment Jonathan Butler is singing about love songs, candlelight, and you, and romance, and do you love me, and you broke my heart, and then the next thing I fell in love with Jesus. What happened?
um, like you know, so for many people who don't know, there are
Yes,
many people who don't know that
yes,
they are. I want to phrase it the right way. There are men of faith. There are spiritual men and women out there in the jazz world
yes,
who professes their faith
yes,
through their music and through
yes.
their lives. Kirk Whalum is one of those brothers.
Absolutely,
Faith
yeah, yeah,
is very deep,
yes,
and I happened to find my faith when I was 19 years old,
yeah.
and I was at the King Neptune Beach in Mandela Bay in PE, and there I became a Christian. And but for many years, I struggled with just making gospel music, or just putting a song on, just maybe one gospel song on an LP, which I used to. We all kind of
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, I want to put a
yeah,
gospel song out.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the deeper I went into my faith and my spirituality, I had a conversation one day with God and said, "Listen, if you give me the songs, I will sing it. If you give me
nice.
the songs, I will sing it. I won't just do it on my own. I'm not going to try and just flirt with gospel music because I
Yeah,
understand the meaning. I understand how much it impacts people's lives. And so
yes,
one day, I was helping a young man in Cape Town, from Cape Town, flew him over to Los Angeles to write a record for him, a gospel record for him. His name was Charlton, and then he's from Mitchell's Plain. And then I went to take the record to his record to a record company called Maranatha, a Christian label. When I got there, I played them the music. We talked. I played them the music. And after I did that, they said, "So what are you doing these days? What are you doing?" So I said, "Well, I write a lot of gospel music." And they said, "Well, do you think we can hear some?" I said, "Okay, okay, I'll put something together." And
yes,
I wrote. I was on a hike trail, and I wrote the song "Falling in Love with Jesus" that Kirk Whalum eventually put on his album. And I had no idea that this song, the simple song, was going
And
to
it's very
come.
simple, right?
It's a very simple hymn, and it
Yeah.
became the world. It's played the world over. I can't tell you how many times I go on Instagram and there's somebody singing it. Stevie Wonder's
Yes.
singing it. I was like,
Yes.
Stevie's going around singing my song all over the place. And I have to tell you, that was a very important time for me, because I felt if I'm going to get anybody's endorsement, it has to be God.
Yes.
It has to come from Him, because
Yes.
I don't want it to come from man. I want it to come from God. And
Absolutely.
I felt released to do gospel music. I felt released. I haven't done an album yet, another one yet, but
Yeah.
I feel like I'm also, like with Ubuntu, as you're saying, with Ubuntu, that kind of really propelled me to the place that I wanted to be in that season. I wanted to really be away from smooth jazz, but bringing South African message to the forefront through the music. You know what I mean? I wanted people to
Yeah.
know me as a South African musician, because I was kind of feeling a sense of like, there's so many guys who sound like George Benson on the radio. There's so much of
Yes.
kind of similar stuff going on the radio. And I told Marcus Miller, I said, hey, my wife, I talked to my wife, and she said, why don't you let Marcus Miller drive your car and you just sit in the passenger seat? So I said, you know
Yes.
what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to speak to him and ask him if he would produce the record for me. And
Yes.
and he said, yeah, and we cut the record in 3 days in Joburg. 3 days we had cut all those tracks. Yeah.
Wow. And it was fascinating. I mean, you mentioned Marcus Miller. I was with both Marcus and Hank at the International Jazz
Yeah, 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 yeah,
International Jazz Day thing, and it was with Didi Bridgewater,
yeah,
and
yeah,
she
yeah,
was
yeah,
going like, oh, we need to talk, we need to talk. I said, well, I'm happy to talk. I'm just a little guy there in the little South Africa, but I
yeah.
felt like a kid because I think all of these connections, because I know how much Marcus really loves this space and and
Oh
and
man,
and and,
yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
and the South African, and he when he thinks about, in fact, there's something that I find that Marcus, again, I'm probably speaking out of turn,
Yeah.
that I think that there's something that he feels outside of the connection to this country that he still feels he needs to do
Oh yeah. No question.
a South African album of sorts that
Yeah.
connects him very deeply to the root of Southern. Am I wrong?
No, you are right, because he's. I played on. I met Marcus in the '80s. I met him in the early '80s. I did "Heal Our Land," the song "Heal Our Land,"
Yes,
Alfie
yes,
"Heal Our
yeah,
Land." So I met
yeah.
Marcus then, and ever since that moment, he called me in London and he sent me a song. He said, "Man, I'd like you to play on the song called Steveland," and it was David Sanborn, the late David Sanborn, the late Wayne Shorter. I'm like, am I really playing with these guys on this album? I mean, it just took me away. So
Yeah.
when he did his last record, Sublimity, he called me up and said, "Listen, I got a very important song, man. It's a song I wrote for my wife's mom, Bunny. I'd love you to just play on it." I said, "Okay, cool." So I started, before I could even press record in my studio, the gate rang and said, "There's a gentleman here, Marcus Miller." I said, "Oh, man, I was just getting ready to do this, and he's on at the front door." And we got together, and I just came back from from Germany about a week ago, or some about a week and a half ago. He was playing in Germany, and Gore is one of these beautiful songs that he did, and so we are like in that same space. I think ha- Marcus and I in that same space. I think Marcus' connection to Africa is really deep.
Yeah.
I think he should just do an album in Africa,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
African musicians. He should just
I
stay
think
back.
so. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think he
Yeah.
would just, I'm going to tell him to, actually, this is a great conversation, but I'm going to tell him,
Yes.
dude, do yourself a favor, because let me tell you, I've got a surprise project that I've worked on. I was in Cape Town now, March, February,
In
March.
April. Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I was home for 3 months, almost 3 months, and I recorded a record. I went all over and went to Bloemfontein, and I worked with a string section there, and I worked with about 5 or 6 young guitar players in Cape Town, and decided to cut a record in Cape Town, and it is phenomenal project. It's something that is so close to my heart. I can't wait for the world to hear it. But yeah, it's about giving back now for me. For me, it's
Yeah.
really like it's giving back time. It's paying it forward. I remember when we did the Stevie Wonder song on Ubuntu, Superwoman.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, uh, Togozo, she was on there. Um, when I came back with the record, I called Stevie Wonder, and Stevie played harmonica on at the end. And what blessed me was that there's no amount of money that you can pay Stevie to do that. Stevie did that out of his heart. He just wanted to
Yes.
let me and play on it. And so
Yes.
I always say to my manager, and I say, if Stevie Wonder, who was my mentor and one of my great influences in my life, if he can do that for free on my record, then I can pay it
Yeah.
to another young musician. So
Yeah.
this album that I recorded in Cape Town, I'm hoping to have it materialize in the next few months, because
Yeah.
it's a beautiful project. And again, like I said, it's paying it forward. It's helping musicians realize that they must write their own songs, and
Yes.
and I said, if we cannot go overseas, then we got to get overseas to come to us. We got to get them to come to us. So I look forward to that. I really look forward to it.
Yeah.
And I play,
Yeah.
like I said, music is like your kids, every song, Ubuntu,
Yeah.
it's, I always have my friend Bagitu Kumalo. I call him
Yes.
my Zulu teacher.
Yes.
Every time I need to say something in a certain way, I say, hey, I pick up the phone and say, Bagitu, Munjan.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then I say, hey man, I've got this song, it's Ubuntu, I call it Ubuntu, but Ivulunyama, and then he'll give me the whole translation real quickly. So he was just here in LA with Paul Simon, and
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well,
I'm very proud of my brother. He's one of those steady brothers that always consistently we in touch with each other all the time.
yeah.
But listen, man,
Yeah.
I first of all, let me just say honestly, I'm honored to be nominated for the Lifetime Achievement Award. I'm very, very grateful. I'm seriously very, very grateful. You know,
Yeah.
it's always good to be seen by my home, especially my home.
Yes.
People
Yes.
don't know, even though I live in the U.S., I always treasure when home can recognize us, especially the ones that's been away so long. We've been away for so long. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. I think the pleasure is a lot more mine and the committee's than it even is yours.
Well, I
So,
tell the committee I'm very grateful too, man. I'm seriously grateful. It's nice to be alive and to know that I can still smell the roses, and I can still, and I know that my countrymen and my countrywomen see me. What's funny these days, when I'm in South Africa, when I go home, there's always some guy or some girl who would run up to me and say, "Can you please take a picture with me? It's for my dad. It's for my mom." I'm like, God, have I already reached that stage? You know what I mean? I'll be 64 in October, so yeah,
yes,
I'll
yeah.
be
But you're a legend, and I think and as you talk about working it back, and it's actually a good place to start wrapping up because we obviously don't have all the time. But I wanted to say something very quickly about this because one again, what people don't really know is that anyway, um, on Crossroads, you had a lot of these gospel songs that were
Yes,
sitting
yes,
there anyway. So it's not new. But again, this is the connecting back of the story that people
yeah.
don't know. We're coming back to wrap up with the great Jonathan Butler. Here is something from Jukey Treats with George Duke. We'll be back.
How do you know the life of personal coach you're about to work with is who they say they are? How do you know if they can do the job? At the Africa Board for Coaching, Consulting and Coaching Psychology, we can tell you. So, before you share your secrets and spend your money, check with us first. Visit www.abccccp.com or call us on 012-751-7608. The ABCCP, the professional body for coaches.
Yeah, last few minutes with the legendary Jonathan Butler, composer and musician, and all-round really great South African, representing us very well across the world, an icon indeed. Uh, you were talking about the young people, so many young musicians sitting listening to this conversation. Who are starting in the music space. I don't even want to narrow it into jazz here. Uh, what would you say to them? What words would you give them?
Man, I feel very strongly that to sustain, to maintain and sustain in this business, your name is worth more than money, silver or gold. Your name means more. I used to tell that to my children, and I believe it to be true. I'm a witness that it's true. In order to survive, not just survive in this business, in order to make it in this business, that's the key. For one of the key things is your name. And the other thing is let humility walk in front of you. Let let humility be walk in the door before your ego walks in the door. And there is no, and thirdly, it is about working hard. It is about working hard. You got to pay attention to your craft. I still remember the days when I practiced and practiced and practiced. The other day I was trying to put together a set list for my show. I'm playing at the Hollywood Bowl at the end of the month, and I am trying to put a show together. And so I was saying, Siri, play me all Jonathan Butler songs. And then one song came up called Calm Before the Storm. And it's just me on guitar. I'm playing on the left side is another guitar, on the right side and I'm playing as fast as a fiddle. And it just took me back to a time where I practiced so much. I wanted to, your body this is it takes a lot as a singer. You got to learn how to, take care of that voice and take care of your chops, and nothing comes without hard work. And also, um, it, what's not meant for you, let it go. Let it go. What's not meant for you, let it go. What's
Yeah,
meant for you will come to you. And I've had to embrace that my whole life. It's like, hey, um, I didn't know I was going to write "Falling in Love with Jesus," but that day that it happened, it changed everything. It changed everything. So what I can say is your name is more than money or gold, man. You see a lot of stars that just dwindle fast. They come up and they dwindle. They go away. And I think I want to be able to sit at the table with other people and just be able to have that respect and that humility. And I think, that's your gift will make room for you if you treat it. If you treat it with respect and honor, your gift will make room for you. Yeah.
absolutely. There's nothing more to say after that, right? Are we seeing you in the country anytime soon?
Yeah, I will. I'll be in Cape Town, October, the whole month, late September into October, and then I'll be playing in Joburg and Sandton at the Lifestyle Expo, something in November, and then I'll be home in December for just Christmas. Yeah.
Fantastic. Which
Yeah.
I think you do quite often, and people don't even know that you
You
actually
know what?
just come to.
You know what? I have a few years ago I decided to buy a home because I wanted to have a home in Cape Town because I bought my mother a house and my mom passed away years ago now, and I wanted to have a place of my own. So now I come home, periodically for a couple of months and just relax and just enjoy my family and go listen to music and eat some good Cape Town food, man.
Yeah. We always close the show with a song. What song should I play for you? That's not your song.
Oh, that's awesome. You can play Sublimity by Marcus Miller.
There we go. So that fits very nicely after that whole conversation because
Yeah.
I can see this Marcus Miller conversation album coming now.
I'm going to tell him, man. I'm going to call him up and say, hey, I just had a major interview with this brother, and you know what? He suggests you make a record in South Africa for yourself. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Dr. Jonathan Butler, thank you so much
it's my
for
pleasure.
your contribution to our music, your holding of our name across the world, and most importantly, letting the music speak through you so that we can learn your lessons. Thank you.
Man, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for the nomination and thank you for seeing me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Have a good one.
You too, bro. You too, my brother.